live speaker of the day on the Green Check. Bill Hinshaw, there he is. He's the president and CEO of Axcella Health, ticker AXLA. Bill, how are we doing today?
Doing great, Spencer. How about you?
Doing fantastic. I see
good.
your slides. Guys, let's bring the slides to the front of the screen. There we go. Bill, I'm going to give you the floor, sir.
Excellent. Thank you, Spencer. Thanks, Benzinga, for having us, and for everybody for your time and interest in what we believe is a very exciting company here at Axcella Health. So today, of course, I'll tell you about the company, our key programs, and why we're excited about right now with Axcella. So let's start with, of course, the fact that I'll be making some forward-looking statements, and I refer you to our safe harbor statements, both on our website and our SEC filings. And, you know, most of your audience will be familiar with Flagship Pioneering as the founder of Moderna. And we were founded by Flagship as well. And why I start with that is at the core of all of those companies is a fundamental big question that, if it's answered, has the potential to be transformational and work at a large scale. And in the case of Axcella Health, what that is what if we could use endogenous molecules to reset, and the key word here is multiple biological pathways at the same time, improve cellular bioenergetics, and by doing so, restore homeostasis, specifically in complex diseases. And it turns out that our compositions of endogenous metabolic modulators can and have indeed done that. So that has allowed us to build a rapidly advancing clinical stage biotech company, as Spencer said, listed on NASDAQ with AXLA. Now, what are the highlights of this? We actually have two ongoing major phase 2 programs in important liver diseases. The first is AXA 1665 in a disease called Overt hepaticencephalopathy. This is a large, i.e. $1 billion growing market that is underserved by the current standards of care, and our differentiated multi-targeted agent with a safe and well-tolerated oral profile offers the potential to first improve on and then become the standard of care. Now, if you move into the middle with AXA 1125, we're looking at NASH, a very large, complex metabolic disease where 1125 in 2 consecutive studies has demonstrated impact across all the key biologies, done that with a safe and well-tolerated profile. And that data led the investigators that we work with to say that this could be a profound first-line therapy, as well as have important differentiation in 2 major important groups. Type 2 diabetics, which are up to 40% of the population and where we've shown to date differentiated data, and the pediatric population. So this is in a phase 2 trial and advancing rapidly. And then we have an exciting finding in terms of our science, where we have demonstrated the ability to impact bioenergetics and restore mitochondrial function. And that allows us to move rapidly into a clinical proof of concept and then into a registration trial. Now, we have cash runway into the third quarter of 22, past key milestones, and we have a strong and experienced leadership team that has allowed us to execute time and time again. So let's look at the science behind Axcella. And that starts with these endogenous metabolic modulators, which are, in fact, powerful signaling agents and master regulators. Why does that matter, and where are we looking to work? Most of the companies that you're talking to or listening to are actually focused on an important area, which is single targets and single pathways. And that's worked for, quote, relatively straightforward diseases. But there's a big problem out there that is yet unresolved, and that is complex diseases. And that's where Axcella Health's endogenous metabolic modulators, or EMM compositions, come together. And we put together specifically designed compositions of amino acids, which are powerful regulators. They restore mitochondrial function, and they affect important mitochondrial function along with inflammation. And our data has demonstrated important therapeutic benefit areas that you see listed across the slide. So let's then move from the base of the science to the model, because we have several distinct advantages at Axcella. One is the science and how we design. The second is the development model. And what you'll see across this slide is the traditional standard approach which leads up to 7 years to reach to phase 2 and works through a series of risky steps to get there. In our case, for both of our lead liver programs, we have moved from concept to phase 2 inside of 4 years, reducing the time roughly in half, and most importantly, providing significant information. Because of the nature of our constituents, we're able to test in a non-IND setting safety, tolerability, structure, and function, which allows us to have a lot of information. You see on the right-hand side, we're talking about reducing risk through information. So we have data on safety and tolerability, activity, as well as dosing. And that has allowed us to move very rapidly into these key programs. So this gives us confidence, information, and the chance to work with the regulators and the medical community. And so we've turned that into 2 major programs. Let me start with 1665 in overt hepatic encephalopathy. This is an important liver disease of cirrhosis. One of the major complications is neurocognitive impairment. And this is driven by a number of factors. One is you have reduced liver function that leads to increased waste products, including ammonia and aromatic amino acids. The muscle tries to help as a metabolic organ, but it ends up creating sarcopenia and wasting away and produces more negative waste products. So it's a truly vicious cycle. Now, the standards of care for overt hepatic encephalopathy work in an indirect way only on ammonia. And the lead compound, lactulose, has a difficulty in terms of you're dosing large volumes of liquid, bad tasting a day to reach a number of loose stools a day. So for these patients, it's a difficult proposition. And so we also see breakthrough while on therapy, and there are no effective treatments for sarcopenia and frailty. So this large marketplace, again, $1 billion and growing, with a huge impact on the healthcare system. You'll see the number up to $7 billion in impact annually just in hospitalization alone. So we have tested 2 consecutive studies to move into our phase 2B. Both have been positive. Let me show just a highlight of some data and the mechanism based on the time that we have. So this shows on the left-hand side the important drivers of the disease: ammonia, reduced muscle function, amino acid imbalance, and neurocognitive impairment. The middle looks at key targets and pathways, and we're able, with the composition of 8 amino acids and derivatives you see on the right, to put together an important composition to address all of these at the same time. Inherently, we're combination therapy in a complex disease. And this has led to many important findings on biomarkers and proof of mechanism. This, however, is the most important data from our most recent trial, the 002 study as presented at DDW. And so we tested 3 different neurocognitive measures: the CFF, the Stroop on-off test, and the most important, which you see at the top in the orange box, the PHES, or psychometric hepatic encephalopathy score. What this shows you are the following key takeaways. Number 1, that with our dose dependency, you see a nice response there. Number 2, that you see that we reach a statistically significant difference in just 16 weeks in this trial that reaches a greater than 2-point improvement in the PHES. That's clinically relevant and comparable to the current standards of care. And number 3, if you look on the right-hand side, that is achieved, again, in just 16 weeks in a majority of these subjects. So this data, along with the mechanism data that we've shown the investigators, had led them to be very excited about the consistency, the magnitude of the data across the different mechanisms, and the safe and well-tolerated profile. They're excited, and that led us to the FDA and the opportunity to initiate the Empower study. So this is a phase 2 clinical study which looks at AXA 1665 in 1 dose versus placebo on top of the standard of care. This will allow us to understand our additional benefit, and we are stratifying for lactulose and rifaximin. So these patients are enriched to have had an OHE event, which means they're more likely to have another one. And so we're going to be able to test our hypothesis in a very efficient fashion and move forward. And we're excited to have initiated this study earlier this year and look forward to updating you in the future about its progress. Now, when we think about another important liver disease in NASH, so this is non-alcoholic steatohepatitis. It is an extremely large disease. We're talking up to 40 million Americans are facing this with no approved therapies to date. Now, they are important comorbidities. Diabetes can be up to at least 40% of these patients. They're coming in on up to 5 to 7 medications, and it's a very complex disease. So there's a lot of combination work already because they know in the industry and the medical community how important that's going to be. Now, unfortunately, also 1 in 10 of our children in America suffer from NASH already, and the lifetime costs are enormous. So in the case of 1125, what we have put together, again, is a composition of 6 amino acids to address the 3 core drivers: metabolism, inflammation, and fibrosis. And again, in the middle of this slide, you will see the key pathways: AMPK, PPAR alpha, NF kappa beta, TGF beta, et cetera. These are all targets of individual drugs. And yet we, because we're inherently combination therapy, can address them all at the same time. And that, again, we have 2 consecutive positive studies with 1125. And I'll show you the key highlight of the data across these mechanisms, which is these are thresholds that if you achieve these thresholds, it correlates with the important regulatory and histological outcomes that the medical community is looking for. So on the top, you'll see all subjects. On the bottom, you'll see the diabetic subjects. And what you'll see is whether it's MRI, PDFF, ALT, or CT1, we're reaching important thresholds in 35 to 45% of the patients in all subjects, and up to 65% of the subjects in diabetics. Now, a couple of key statements around this. Number one, this data was done in only, in this case, 16 weeks. We are looking forward to continuing that data because our hypothesis is that the longer we give our product, the likelihood of benefit is going to increase. Number two is, again, you'll see this difference in the diabetic subjects. They're a large population, they're difficult to treat, and the words of Dr. Harrison, who's the most extensively experienced investigator in the field, this has the potential to be a true game changer for these patients. So we're really looking forward to continuing to advance this program. And in fact, that's what we've been able to do with clearing our IND and moving directly into a phase 2B trial called IMPACT. Now, this is going to be a 48-week paired biopsy study looking at 2 doses of AXA 1125 versus a placebo. We are looking in the F2, F3 greater than NAS score 4 range of patients, and all the standard state-of-the-art measures will be taken, including an interim analysis at 24 weeks for a meaningful proportion of patients that will be reporting out middle of next year as our current plans. This trial is doing very well in terms of uptake, and we're excited because we have an efficient trial that is going to showcase the multi-targeted mechanism of our product based on existing data. That's the middle dose that you see in this graphic. And because of our safety profile we've demonstrated to date, we're dosing higher as well. And so we're very much looking forward to bringing both of these programs forward, as well as the important advances that we have from our pipeline that I mentioned in terms of bioenergetics and mitochondrial function. And we'll be updating you later this year on the progress that we plan there. So once we get people excited about the science and the data and the mechanism and the safety and tolerability with such a differentiated approach, we then, of course, get the question of, do you have intellectual property? And the answer is fundamentally absolutely. In fact, we have composition and method of use patents on our lead programs. On the left-hand side, you'll see our strategy to appropriately protect our innovation. The first is composition method of use. The second is a platform or mechanistic approach. And the third is formulation and manufacturing, allowing us to put together an appropriate matrix here in this setting. Now, on the right-hand side, you'll see that we have a global scale to this, and indeed that is the case. So from this standpoint, we're doing very well overall in terms of our science, our intellectual property, and our cash balance puts us at $78 million through June of this year, with cash and marketable securities. Again, this gets us past key milestones next year, and we're excited about the progress that the company has made under the leadership team that I'm fortunate to work with. So you can see here some excellent leaders with great backgrounds in companies. And again, our board of directors is a fantastic strategic experience group led by David Epstein, former head of Novartis Pharma, Stephen Hoag from Moderna Therapeutics, Greg Behar from Nestle Health Sciences, and others that have allowed us to put into a great performance and track record to date. So I thank you for your time and attention today. I wish you great health. Thank you for your interest in Axcella, and we look forward to really transforming the lives of people with complex diseases and advancing our phase 2 programs and platform. Thank you very much, Spencer, for the opportunity.
Bill Hinshaw, thank you very much, President and CEO of Axcella Health, ticker AXLA. Bill, thanks so much for presenting today at the Benzinga Small Cap Healthcare Conference.
Absolutely. Thank you. Take care. Bye now.
All right.